let's face it, Meshuggah is so freaking sick. So check it out. Dancers to a Discordant System was the tune. Gave you guys a little my rendition of it. It's trying to make it jazz fusionified. Can you really do that with Meshuggah? I don't know. I tried. So Meshuggah is so much more than just a metal band, in my opinion. Anytime I try to figure out one of their riffs, it's not like I've done a million of them or anything, but my favorite ones I've unpacked a little bit. And every time I do it, I'm like, this is just so much deeper than like all the Meshuggah clone bands. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. I shouldn't say clones, but you know. Meshuggah's a big time source material for like a whole genre. It's called djent. Maybe you've heard of it. But when you unpack these Meshuggah riffs themselves, like they're not just this one note kind of thing, right? Like there's the rhythmic component of djent, which is super dope, and that's what drew me to the genre and to Meshuggah in the first place. But when you start unpacking these riffs, there's almost like a whole other component that I feel like a lot of the genre misses, and that's this kind of 20th century atonal classical music thing, like minimalism, atonal music thing. It seems like Meshuggah is actually like for real dipping into that tradition, not in a contrived way, but like in a for real way. And so I just wanted to show you guys an example of that here. So check this out. Now, I'm not Rick Beato. I'm not Adam Neely. I'm not like the biggest music theory buff. I mean, I know some theory, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like, you know, like a straight up professor like those guys. But I do like to look at this stuff, so check it out. So Dancers to a Discordant System. Now it's in treble clef. I just realized right before I press record here that I play bass, and maybe bass players are watching this, so sorry, treble clef, it is inferior, but we wrote it in treble clef as if it was for guitar. They tune 8 strings standard, but dropped a half step. So I have it written for standard guitar, but if you were to play the lowest strings on an 8 string the way that Meshuggah tunes them, this is how you would read it on guitar. So check it out. So Dancers to a Discordant System. Okay, definitely doesn't have the same vibe as when they play it, right? When you have this piano MIDI on here, it actually sounds kind of Schoenberg or something, or maybe it doesn't. I don't really totally, I don't listen to atonal music, but one of those guys. It kind of sounds like something I would have heard in college, right? Let's break it down real quick. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures. So it's this 5 measure, I want to say phrase, but is it a 5 measure phrase? It's like a 5 measure ditty. And what happens in the tune is that for the intro, they just keep circling this 5 measure thing. So let's take a look at this 5 measure thing real quick. So really, the 5 measure thing is actually the same thing done 3 times in a slightly different way back to back. I'm arguing here that it's all based off of this isn't really a tone row. But it's kind of like a tone row. So like a tone row, like a 12 tone row is like when you take the chromatic scale, all 12 notes of it, and you like lay it out in an order, and then the piece will keep going through those 12 notes in that order, doing different things with them, putting them together. It's like a whole genre of classical music. So this is kind of functioning like a tone row. I don't know what this would be called because it's not a 12 tone row, and it has notes that repeat and everything, but it seems to be, this has to be a part of that tradition somehow. And if it's not, it's so related that it might as well be, or maybe it's the next step in the evolution. I don't know. But so check it out. So this is essentially the notes that they're playing here. And it just does that over and over and over again, right? But with some slightly different rhythm. So I'm calling them the 3 dancers. So we've got dancer 1 here, which is, this will sound the most familiar to those of you familiar with this song. This is like the opening riff, right? Okay, right on, easy enough. Then what happens is they play it again. This one is almost the same, except you can see it's got a slight difference where this low E here isn't carrying over the bar, and this B is a quarter note instead of a 8th note. So check it out. Okay, so it's like kind of the same thing, but just slightly different a little bit. It's a little variation. total minimalist thing. You're using the same material that's slightly different back to back to get variation. And then the last one, dancer 3, I'm calling it, instead of having this big note on the beginning of the phrase, they turn that one into an 8th note and kind of plow through this sequence of 8th notes until you get to this G flat here. And yeah, I feel like this one's the most different one. Dancer 3 is very, feels like it's the most, it has the most rhythmic movement to me. It's actually my least favorite, but it's the one that I feel like has the most like wheels on it, if you will. Check it out. So those are the 3 dancers. And when you put the 3 dancers together, you get this. So here is dancer 1. Dancer 2 is going to be that to here. So there's dancer 2, and then dancer 3 here to the end. Dancer 3. And when you put them all together, you get the thing. 2, 3. So you get this 5 measure phrase with the 3 dancers there. So here's the next level. So I'm going to pop open, here's the project of the intro that I recorded. I'm going to pop open the MIDI, even though it's muted. This is what the bass is playing. So each one of these little events here, I have them copy pasted on the MIDI here. So this highlighted region is this whole thing, and it's copy pasted over and over again into the project. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and then you got a little nitnoid there. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's almost like, dude, then you got like 3s and 3s, and then it's like, there's just 3s everywhere. 12, 8. So each beat's subdivided into 3s. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, right? You got 3s there. You got the 3 dancers that we talked about. And then in the actual intro riff, you essentially have it played 3 times. So you've got this like whole 3 thing going on, which is cool. So check it out. So you got the first riff here. Okay, so that gives you like the perspective on all 3 of those dancers happening in their kind of, let's say like their home state, like their natural state. So then when it happens again for the second larger dancer, or the second dancer bucket, whatever you want to call it, for our ears, like hierarchically, we hear things, and Meshuggah does this too, where the drums will mark things in these big even sections. So big sections of 4. So you'll have all this odd number stuff, like this 5 measure phrase happening within the context of like a drum beat that's marking things in groupings of 4 or 8. And so we're hearing this second 5 measure theme. We're hearing that happen again, but instead of starting at the beginning, it's starting on like measure 6. We'll still be in the middle of this 3 dancer part. It won't be starting at the beginning, but the drums will make our ears think it's the beginning, but we're in the middle of the other thing, and it's just like, so check it out. Top. But you see, it's not the top. That's the top of the phrase, but we're already in the middle of like this other thing. It's like, okay, so right there we got the three dancers we just went through. They're happening in these weird groupings where you've got the drums marking the middle of this 16 bar thing happening, right? And then to make up for the space, there's an extra bar. So if you got these 5 times 3, so you got this 5 measure thing happening 3 times in a row. So that gives you 15 measures. But if they're contained within this longer 8 bar phrase that's happening like in the timekeeping part of the drums, then we need 16 bars because two 8s is 16. But when you play the 3 dancers part 3 times, you get 15. So to make it all work, you got to put it in that extra bar where you start it over and then you just cut it off after the first measure of it. And that's what's happening right here, right? And there's the actual segue part they do there. So that's what makes it all even. And that it's almost like this right here is proof that they're trying to get your ear to hear this as the regular kind of 8 measures and 8 measures, but all the mechanics inside don't line up with that. And that's, you know, this is typical Meshuggah. I mean, this is djent 101. But the cool part about it is that Meshuggah stuff, it fits like this atonal classical music world thing. it's not just the rhythmic aspect of it. It's not just rhythmically odd with like 5 measures of this rhythmically odd thing. It's also like melodically or harmonically referencing like a whole 20th century classical thing. So I think that that's really cool, and it kind of blows my mind every time that that I unpack one of these riffs. And so the challenge is learning how to play it, how to hear it, or at least intuit it enough to where you can successfully play through the whole thing. Anyways, I'm gonna keep practicing. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.